Hello friends, my name is Steve and this is Steve Talks Books. Thanks for coming by watching my weekly update. It's where I talk about what I've been reading and what I'm going to read, stuff that's going on the channel, and other fun topics that I like to bring up for conversation. So those of you who are new here, I usually read grimdark and horror, some fantasy, but I'm open to reading any genre. Whatever kind of tickles my fancy is what I'm reading at the moment. But lately it's been more horror and grimdark, but like I said, I'm open to anything. I also like talking to people. I like having conversations. I like having interactions. And that's why you see so many different conversation videos on the channel. I like learning new things, hearing different perspectives, and I like the back and forth and getting to know different people and getting to know what they've been through, their experiences, all that kind of fun stuff. So that's me in a nutshell. I'm not a scholar. I'm just a normal guy who likes to read, and that's my perspective. Is just a normal with a full-time job and a family and other things I like to do that I don't get to nearly enough because I'm reading all the time. But so that's my perspective in a nutshell. It's just a normal guy. Whenever I do a review, I try and not give any details at all. So if you watch any of my reviews or read any of my reviews on my blog, I try to make it as spoiler-free as possible. I like going into books blind, so I try and review books as if I was going to listen. I don't like to be told what the entire story was about or the characters or what they've gone through or whatever. I try and give you just the minimum amount and just give you my impressions, the themes I pick up, things like that, my reaction to it, and hopefully that is helpful to you. So those of you who are familiar with me, what's been keeping up with what's been going on with me, I've been sick. I can talk about that later in the video for those of you who are interested, but I've been in quarantine for a week now. Last week, when I recorded the update, I was still testing negative for COVID, so I was still getting negative tests. And last Saturday and last Sunday, my health just started taking a dive. What started as like a minor cold turned into something more serious, and I thought before I go back to work on Monday, I better take another test just in case. So after I did the update last week, I was not feeling very well, and I took another test and I was positive. So thankfully, my employer and the state still recognize a 10-day quarantine period. I can't imagine going back after 5 days. Thankfully, my employer I work for the government. I work for a local municipality, so they were like, do not come to work for 10 days. I have a ton of leave, so I'm not the type. I always like to have a ton of time in the bank, so I'm fine with all that stuff. I had plenty of time. I didn't have to worry about that, but so I couldn't go anywhere. I didn't have the energy to do much other than read. I mean, I would get winded really easy, and thankfully my family didn't hit them nearly as hard, but it hit me. It knocked me around pretty good. So I got a lot of reading done this week. That's the positive thing. So this week I finished Dark Sea's End by Richard Nell. It's the first book in the Beyond Ash and Sand series, and it's fun to go back to this world. And I'd been semi-spoiled on some characters that are in the book that I wish I didn't know. And it wasn't an intentional, someone didn't do this intentionally. I watched a video that mentioned the book, and I overheard something that happens, and I wish I didn't know that because I feel like it ruined part of the experience for me. But overall, I enjoy going back to the world. For those of you who don't know, I'm a huge Ash and Sand fan, so it was fun to go back to the world and explore more of what this world has to offer. And I'm very much looking forward to hearing more about what happens in this world post the events of Ash and Sand, the original trilogy. This morning we did have a meetup with Richard Nell, and Stacy's all booked to discuss Dark Sea's End, and as usual we get off on a bunch of other topics, so that is on the channel if you're interested in watching it. The first 15 minutes are spoiler free, so you can watch that. And I've heard people say you can read this without reading Ash and Sand first, and my advice would be to, if you're interested in this series, in Richard Nell's work, I think if you don't want to commit to a series with 600-page books, I think Kings of Paradise is 600 pages. Kings of Ash is a little bit short, like 500, and then Kings of Heaven is 400. It tears down a little bit. If you're afraid of getting into the series, into that trilogy, I think Dark Sea's End might be a good place to start, because it's short. It's like 300 pages long, and it's not as dark as Ash and Sand. But ideally, I would say read Ash and Sand first, and then read Dark Sea's End. I think there's some revelations in Dark Sea's End, and there's some fun things that you'll pick up on if you read Ash and Sand first. I also know that it's hard to read a series that long. For some people, they're afraid to get into big fantasy books. So if you're at all curious, it's a good place to start. But if you want the full package, I would say read Ash and Sand first before you get into Dark Sea's End. And I also want to mention that all of Richard Nell's books are, I believe, half price off on Amazon right now. He told us this morning. So check that out. If you've been waiting to pick up any of his work, now's a good time to grab it and jump in to the party. It's a good time, and it's like I said, it's my favorite trilogy. Since I had plenty of time to read, I thought I'm going to finish Hearts Strange and Dreadful by Tim McGregor. This is a book that I've really been enjoying, but it wasn't on my schedule, so I would read it. I would chip away at it, and I loved this book. It's a great horror book. It's based in I think of the 1820s, I believe. I might be wrong, but it's based it's a historical horror book, and the way that he plays, there's some parts of history that actually happened during the book, and I thought that was really cool. But the story, it's like a slow burn. It almost reminded me of a quiet horror almost. There's some moments that build, and there are some scary moments, but a lot of it is set up, and it's one of those books where it's a short book, but I feel like I can walk through the village and I know the characters. Like, I know these people that I've been reading about. So what he pulls off in a short period of time is pretty impressive. And I'll have a video review on the book, but I do have a blog post that I explore a bit more on the book, what I thought about the book. So I'll leave my blog down below if you want to check that review or any others that I've been trying to update it with. Also this week, I read Cannibal Creator by Chad Lutzky. It was an ARC that I received from Chad. We had a meetup this week and to discuss the book and a conversation. So I read Cannibal Creator, and the word cannibal, it turns people off. I think some people like, ooh, cannibals, people eating people. I think that's part of the kind of, it's fun to play with that kind of stuff sometimes. This is, I would say, is an extreme horror book, but it's not on the far end of extreme horror. But it is, it's more than just usual horror. But I enjoyed the book, and there was a lot of questions it raised. I don't want to give too much about the book away, but it's nature versus nurture, science. How far should we go with science, with experiments, ethics, parenting, family, survival? I think I can see that you question what you would do in certain situations when you're thrown into this survival situation. You wonder, what would I do? How far would I be willing to go to survive, and what would I be willing to do? Would I give up? Would I fight? Would I run? What would I do if I was in that position? And I think it's always interesting to kind of turn the mirror on yourself a little bit during those kind of stories. But I did enjoy Cannibal Creator, so again, that is on my blog, and I'll have a video review on that eventually. After Cannibal Creator, I started More Than a Vampire by J.R. Carroll, and this book is going to be a long series, and I did see a lot of setup. There's a lot of this first book was a lot of build a lot of the different, like, the mythology and the creatures and the different types. There's a lot of, I don't want to say setup because that sounds like it's boring, but it's a lot of building a foundation in this first book, and I can see that it's going to be a long haul type of story. I did enjoy it. I think the main character is like a wisecracking, always has the right, kind of like I don't know, like an Indiana Jones type, but like a wisecracking character, and that's not always what I enjoy, but I did enjoy the story. I think humor's tough to pull off, but I did enjoy More Than a Vampire, and we are having a meetup for that, and I'll talk more about that later. Then after More Than a Vampire, I read Ghost City Girl by Simon Paul Wilson. It's a book that we're going to be meeting up on at the end of the month. It's a short book, and it's right over here, right on top right there. It's a relatively short book. It's a cyberpunk horror mesh of ideas, and this book I finished in one day. I sat down, actually read like 30 pages the night before, and I had to go to bed because I was exhausted from being ill. The next day I sat down and I flew through it. In this book, I had a great time with it. It's a great mesh of science fiction and horror. Has some really funny moments in it. So it does get ramped up. The action ramps up towards the end and it gets more horror focused. But the first half, I would say, is more science fiction, cyberpunk. And then it gets into the darker stuff later. So I had a great time with it. And we are having a meetup for that with Lauren from Paperback Empire and Stacy from Stacy's All Booked at the end of the month. So there's time to jump on that if you are interested in joining us. Had a great time with Ghost City Girl, and that's another video I'll be making eventually. Then I started Gunmetal Gods by Zamil Akhtar. I hope I'm pronouncing your name properly, Zamil. We are also having a meetup for Gunmetal Gods on the same day as we're having the meetup for Ghost City Girl, just earlier in the morning. And I love this book. I'm having such a good time with it. It's one of those books you get into and you just have that feeling. I think most readers know what I say. You just have this feeling about a story, about a book, about the characters. It just feels like you're home. I'm having a blast with it so far. I'm having a great time with it. It is grimdark. It is like a fantasy grimdark story, but I'm having a great time with it. I just have that feeling with this book. So far I'm about 200 pages in and having just a blast with it. Then after Gunmetal Gods, I'll be reading Idol's Fall by Mike Schell. It's the third book in the Iconoclasts trilogy. On Friday evening, Epic Tales and I will be meeting with Mike Schell to discuss Idol's Fall and the series. We'd be meeting with him every book, but because of the holidays and some vacations and stuff, we had to push it back a little bit farther. So I'll be reading and finishing Idol's Fall before then. And also in between Idol's Fall and Gunmetal Gods, I'll be reading The Hay Bale by Priscilla Bettis. Some of you know Priscilla from the comments. She's an author and she's very supportive in the community. And I did mention this book a couple of weeks ago because it was being released. But check that out if you haven't already. It's a novelette. It's like 42 pages long. So I'm going to be reading that in between these other two books. So looking forward to that. To read The Hay Bale and support Priscilla. She's very supportive. Want to pay it forward and support her work. So last week on the channel, thankfully, was fairly quiet because I was, like I said, I was really sick. So I did have a conversation with Chad Lutzky. We did talk about Cannibal Creator and some other things. I do have the audio up on the podcast. Those of you who want to listen to the entire conversation, I did post a portion for Cannibal Creator on the channel to check that out if you are interested in that. Like I said, or the audio is available on the podcast. Yesterday, which was Saturday, I had a conversation with Halo Scott. I'm going to be starting the Rift Cycle. It's a 4-part series. I'm starting that this month, and after I finish the series, I'm going to meet again with Halo Scott to discuss the entire series. Have like a spoiler-filled discussion. That's open to anyone. Let me know if you're interested in it on the forum. I have a thread going about that. Had a great time with Halo. Halo is hilarious. We talked about murder, whiskey, jelly beans. Just had a blast, and I'm still getting my lungs back, and I was laughing so hard that I was coughing, but I had a great time. That video will be up tomorrow. I'll have that on the podcast and the video up tomorrow, and then I'll have clips of it this week. Also this morning, I had a meetup with Stacy's All Booked and author Richard Nell to discuss Dark Sea's End. And like I said, we did veer off and talk about a bunch of other topics, but we did discuss Dark Sea's End for the first hour or so, and then we talk about Lord of the Rings and Shogun and some other things. So if you're interested, check that out. The first 15 minutes are spoiler free, and then we do get into spoilers for Ashen Sand and Dark Sea's End. So just a heads up, and I'll add chapter notes to that video, and I'll have that on the podcast as well if you'd rather listen. That is available to you. So this week on the channel, like I mentioned, the More Than a Vampire discussion, I think we're going to move it because there's some scheduling conflicts. So anyone who wants to join us for More Than a Vampire with author Joseph Carroll, that is still available. It's a short book. It's a quick read. And it is a lot more than a vampire. And I do like what he does with vampires and the world he's building. There's a lot to the world and the creatures. There's a ton of stuff. There's a ton of setup in this book that I'm looking forward to seeing what he does with this world. It's going to be a very it's going to be like a big story, and I have predictions on what's going to happen next on that series. So I'm curious to see how that goes, but we're going to push that back a couple weeks. So still available for anyone who wants to join. Also on Saturday, I'm having an author conversation with Sarah Chorn. Having a conversation with her Saturday. That will be posted after probably next Monday, but we'll see how everything falls into place. But looking forward to that. That's going to be a fun time. Also this week, I have a book haul coming that I'll probably try and record tomorrow, be out Wednesday. So keep your eyes out for that. And I last week I wanted to get out the 1 year YouTube anniversary video, and I pushed through that video, and watching it back, it wasn't. I felt like I kept repeating myself, and I have a bad habit of doing that. For those of you who have been around a while, you probably noticed that. But after doing that video, I've been in the haze for the past week. It's been, the brain fog has been the worst part maybe, but every day has been different symptoms. Every day it's been either like a cold, or some days I just feel achy. Other days I cough and I can't breathe. The next day it's just like headaches and dizziness. It's been a journey. It's been quite a ride. So I did have some brain fog in that video, but I wanted to get it out in time. So thanks all of you who came by to comment and interact. And also a reminder, this month, the short story Saturday book of the month is O Pain by Kyle Winkler. We're having a live stream with Kyle Winkler, and I believe Lauren from Paperback Empire has signed up for that as well, to join on stream to talk about O Pain. It's a short story collection. We'll be breaking down each story with Kyle, just to talk about the book and the collection and our thoughts on it. That'll be a lot of fun. So that is the last Saturday of the month, I believe the 29th, if I'm right. So all these events are on our calendar, on our website. Check that out if you are curious to see what we have going on. It's open to anyone. Just register and then RSVP for the event. Also on the website, we have forums, we have blogs. You can create your own blog if you want to. We have discussions. You can post your videos. Let me know that if you register there, if you want to post your videos to share. Another place to help spread the word for your videos if you're into it, or if you're an author, want to talk about your book, you want to post a thread about your book. It's all there, available for anyone. So, how are you doing this week? Were you sick too? This week was my birthday. On Tuesday was my birthday, and I could not do anything. I could not even move, so I just bummed around and read books and didn't do a whole lot, which is kind of a bummer. But what are you gonna do? It's what happens. So I'll try and celebrate. My wife's birthday is in a couple weeks, so we're gonna celebrate together like we normally do anyway. So it'll work out. But I do want to mention that when I first started getting sick, it started like a normal cold, and I went and got tested twice, 2 different places, and I kept testing negative, and my symptoms got worse. So what used to be just like a cold that most people would just kind of fight through back before all this madness, it's like an annoyance more than an illness kind of thing. It was like, well, I can feel a little bit of congestion or have a little bit of cough or whatever. Now you have to be careful because you don't know if you're contagious or what you have, or it could be a cold. So, I stayed home and I was trying to be safe, and I kept testing negative. So thankfully I took that last at-home test on Sunday before I went back, and I really went downhill over the weekend. So it's been rough. The symptoms, like I said, were different every day. So, those of you who are in the same position, just be careful. Be safe. If you're not feeling well, you may, like I said, I tested negative a few times before I tested positive. So just keep that in mind that, just be patient, because sometimes it seems like it drags out a while. And this new 5-day quarantine thing, I don't know. If I had 5 days to get back to work, if I wasn't in the position I'm in, then it would be really difficult. So those of you who are in a position where your employer is making you come back after 5 days now because the CDC changed their the quarantine time to 5 days, which I think is crazy. I think if some strains may be a quicker turnaround, there's no way I could have gone back to work in 5 days. I mean, even now, even today, a week later, I'm still just not. I mean, I get winded just walking to the room or doing a whole lot. I can get dizzy if I move too fast. So for those of you who are in that position, hang in there and just try and be safe and look out for yourself. It's a tough situation. So, be safe out there. Be careful. I hope everyone's safe and healthy, but it's rough. So there's a lot going on in the world right now. So be careful out there. Look out for each other. I still like Jerry Springer. So anyway, look out for yourselves and each other. After Jerry Springer, if those of you who remembers Jerry Springer, did you anyone because I used to watch it. I thought it was hilarious. But at the end, after these people spend an hour beating each other up, and the people throwing chairs, and it's this madness for an hour, and then he gets up and tries to be this serious person who actually cares about the people on the show. Like, look out for yourselves and each other. Yeah, I sound like Jerry Springer. So who else remembers Jerry Springer? Let me know down below. Yeah, that was crazy. That was crazy. It got worse and worse as it went, but when it started going off the rails, there were some moments that were pretty entertaining. Yeah, but it makes you kind of question, why do I find this entertaining? So for those of you who want to connect with me, the best place is on our website. We have forums, we have blogs, we have videos, we have all that stuff that I mentioned. That's the best place to get in touch with me. I also use Vero, post what I'm listening to, what I'm watching, all that kind of stuff. So my personal social media stuff, I post pictures of there. There's a couple people that have joined, so it's cool to interact with you all there. And I also use Twitter at Steve Talks Books is my book-focused Twitter. I try to use it less and less. I try to just keep it book-focused and not get off the rails there, because Twitter can be a strange place. So I try not to use it as much anymore. So like I said, the calendar is there for anyone who wants to see what we have going on. If you want to join any of the events, just RSVP and join the events. It's a good way to make new friends. And we're a friendly bunch. Come and say hello. So thanks to all of you for coming by. Let me know what you're watching. What are you reading? What are you listening to? What are you up to this week? Let me know how you're doing. Are you safe? Are you healthy? How was your week? Were you in quarantine this week too? We can be quarantine buddies. So thanks for coming by. Thanks for saying hello. I really, really appreciate it. I appreciate all of your support. And once again, thanks for everything. So thanks for all the well wishes too. It was really nice to have all of your support during that time. It's been rough. It's been a rough week. I got a lot of reading done, but it's been rough. So thanks to all of you, and I hope you're having a great week. Let me know how you're doing down below. I'll talk to you soon.